Rain had fallen all morning in the small town of Maplewood, turning the streets into shining ribbons of silver. Liam Parker, a quiet 12-year-old who loved animals more than anything, was walking home from school when he heard a faint sound beneath the rush of water. At first, he thought it was a bird, but when he stopped beside the drainage ditch that ran along the park, he realized it was a cry, a thin, desperate peeping, coming from deep inside the concrete pipe. He crouched down, water soaking through his shoes, and peered into the darkness. Tiny shapes huddled together near the curve of the pipe. Ducklings. Their mother must have been swept away in the storm. The current inside the drain was still running fast, and the little ones were trapped, fluttering but unable to climb out. "Hang on," Liam whispered, though he knew they couldn't understand. He dropped his backpack, knelt in the mud, and stretched his arm inside. His fingertips brushed slick feathers, but the ducklings were just out of reach. For a moment he hesitated. The pipe smelled of rust and algae, and the water looked cold. Then he thought about what would happen if he walked away. He could not bear that thought. He took a deep breath, flattened himself against the ground, and crawled inside. The pipe was narrow and slippery. Water soaked his jeans, and his elbows scraped against rough concrete. He kept inching forward, one hand on the wall, the other reaching for the tiny cluster of life ahead of him. When his fingers closed around the first duckling, it squealed and kicked weakly. He cupped it gently and backed out, setting it in the grass outside the pipe. Then he went back for the rest. By the time he pulled the last one free, his arms were trembling from cold and effort. 6 ducklings huddled together, shivering but alive. Their soft peeps filled the air. Liam sat back in the rain, mud streaked across his face, and felt a rush of relief so strong it made him laugh. He waited, watching, until a mallard appeared at the edge of the pond, the mother, calling frantically. When the ducklings heard her, they answered and tottered toward the sound. She led them into the water, and they swam away as though nothing had happened. Liam stayed there long after they were gone. He wasn't sure why he felt so different, only that he had done something that mattered. When he reached home, his mother gasped at his muddy clothes. "Liam Parker, what happened to you?" He told her, haltingly, about the ducklings. She looked at him for a long moment, then hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Never lose that heart." Word spread quickly. The local paper printed a short piece titled "Boy Rescues Ducklings from Drainage Pipe." People stopped Liam in the street to thank him. He wasn't used to attention, but he learned something important. When you show kindness, it invites others to do the same. Soon his friends wanted to help clean the park and protect the wildlife around the pond. They called themselves the Animal Rescue Club, and their first mission was simple: keep Maplewood streams safe. Under their care, the park changed. They planted trees, picked up litter, and built small wooden ramps along the drainage ditches so animals could climb out if they fell in. Liam discovered that saving lives wasn't a one-time act. It was a habit. Every weekend he was there, sometimes alone, sometimes with a handful of volunteers, listening to the sounds of the pond. One spring afternoon, Claire, a volunteer from the local wildlife center, visited the park. She had read about the boy and wanted to thank him in person. "You've inspired more people than you realize," she said. "Would you like to see the center sometime?" When he visited, Liam learned how injured birds and animals were cared for. He began helping there after school, feeding ducklings, cleaning cages, even learning how to bandage small wings. The work was quiet and patient, and he loved it. Months passed. The story of the ducklings faded from the news, but not from Liam's heart. Then, one rainy evening almost a year later, he was biking home when he heard another cry, this time a sharp yelp. He followed the sound to the same drainage pipe. Water rushed in from the storm. A tiny puppy was trapped near the edge, struggling against the current. Without hesitation, Liam dropped his bike and plunged into the mud. He caught the puppy by the scruff and pulled it free just as the water surged higher, nearly knocking him down. He wrapped it in his jacket and ran home. His mother didn't scold him this time. She just fetched a towel. They called Claire, who came with her first aid kit. "He's lucky you found him," she said softly. Another few minutes and the current might have taken him. They nursed the puppy back to health, and when no one claimed him, Liam named him Lucky. From then on, Lucky followed him everywhere. The rescue drew more attention, but Liam didn't care about being known. What mattered was that people began paying attention to the small lives around them. The mayor installed protective grates on the drains. Teachers invited Liam to speak at school assemblies about compassion and the environment. At first, he stammered through his speeches, but each time he spoke, he saw how eyes softened, how people began to listen. The next spring, the Wildlife Center hosted an open day. Families came to see the rescued animals, and the Animal Rescue Club had a booth with photos of their projects. When a reporter asked Liam why he did it, he said, "Because once you see something suffering, you can't pretend you didn't. You have to help." That quote ended up on the local news and later on a sign near the pond. As the years rolled forward, the club grew. The park became a model for neighboring towns' cleaner water, more wildlife, children learning to plant trees instead of picking flowers. Liam felt proud but humble. He knew all of it started not with plans or meetings, but with the sound of frightened ducklings and a boy who chose to listen. When he was older, he gave a presentation at school titled "How One Person Can Make a Difference." He stood before his classmates with a board of photos, the pipe, the ducklings, the volunteers. "I was scared that day," he admitted, "but courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding something else matters more." His teacher clapped first, then the whole class followed. That summer, the town opened a new path around the pond called the Maplewood Wildlife Walk. A small plaque on the bridge read, "In honor of compassion that saves lives." During the ceremony, Liam's parents stood beside him, and Lucky tugged at his leash, eager to explore. Claire whispered, "You didn't just save animals, Liam. You taught people how to care." Time passed gently. Lucky grew older, slower, content to nap beside Liam as he studied outside. Every spring, ducks nested safely near the pond. Children fed them under watchful signs that reminded visitors to protect wildlife. One afternoon, a little boy ran up and asked, "Are you the duck boy?" Liam laughed. "That's what they used to call me." The child's eyes shone. "I want to save animals too." Liam knelt down. "You can start now," he said. That evening he walked by the stream again. The old drainage pipe was almost hidden by vines. Water trickled softly through it, no longer a threat but part of the landscape. Liam crouched, touched the cool stone, and whispered, "Thank you." A Lucky wagged his tail. They watched the sunset together. The sky painted gold and rose over the quiet pond. Years later, Maplewood still celebrated Duckling Day every spring. Families gathered. Children released small wooden ducks into the pond as symbols of kindness. People told the story of the boy who had heard a cry in the rain and answered. They said his courage reminded them that compassion could begin anywhere, in a ditch, in a classroom, in the simple act of stopping to help. Liam never sought recognition. He just kept showing up at clean-ups at the Wildlife Center, guiding younger volunteers. When people asked why he kept doing it, he smiled and said, "Because the world needs listeners." On a quiet evening long after, he walked the path once more, Lucky padding beside him. Fireflies blinked in the reeds. The pond mirrored the stars. He sat beneath the old oak tree and listened to the faint chorus of frogs. Somewhere far off came the sound of ducks settling for the night. He thought of the day it all began, the mud, the cold, the tiny beating hearts in his hands. Kindness, he realized, was like water. It flowed outward, touching everything in its path. When people in Maplewood spoke of him, they didn't just tell the story of the rescue. They spoke of what came after: the cleaner streams, the children planting trees, the feeling that even a small act could change something vast. And near the pond, beside the bridge, a wooden sign still read, "In memory of a boy who listened to the world and answered with kindness."